Welcome to The Explainer. If you're a marathon runner who feels amazing for 32 kilometers only to have it all fall apart at the end, well, this one's for you. Today, we are building the strength blueprint that'll help you stop fading and start finishing with some serious power. So let's just start with the million-dollar question, one that every single long-distance runner has screamed internally at some point. You've done the training, your cardio feels great, but then in those last grueling kilometers, it feels like the wheels just completely fall off. Why does that happen? Well, here's the thing. The answer, and this might surprise you, usually isn't about your lungs or your heart. It's about the structural integrity of your body, your running chassis. See, when that chassis starts to fail, it doesn't matter how powerful your engine is. You're just not getting to that finish line efficiently. Okay, so if we're going to fix this, we first have to know exactly what we're up against. Let's identify the enemies. There are really three main biomechanical breakdowns that just love to sabotage a runner's finish. First up, you've got the energy leak. This is when your core gets tired and your torso starts twisting side to side, just wasting all that precious forward momentum. Then there's the one we all fear, the shuffle, which is basically a giant sign that your hamstrings have checked out. And finally, the hip drop, where your pelvis starts tilting with every single foot strike, creating instability all the way down the chain. All right, let's get to the solutions. It's time to build our first pillar of strength. To fight back against that energy leak, we need to build a rock-solid forward engine. And here's exactly how we're going to do it. Our first weapon of choice is the single-arm kettlebell swing. Now, don't just think of this as a power move. It's really an anti-rotation engine builder. What it does is forge this sort of iron clamp in your midsection that forces every ounce of your energy to go straight ahead, right where you want it. Now, how you program this is absolutely key. You're going to aim for 3 to 4 sets of about 12 to 15 reps on each arm. The perfect time to do this? On a quality day when you're already doing speed or tempo work, because it primes your body for that explosive movement. Just one big rule, avoid doing this the day before a long run. You don't want any of that lower back fatigue lingering. Okay, let's talk cues, because this is where the magic happens. You have to remember, the power is not coming from your arm. It's all about the hips. The cue is to snap the hips to float the bell. And while you're doing that, your number one job is to fight the twist. Keep those shoulders perfectly square to the front. That is how you build that critical anti-rotation strength. And to keep this safe and effective, please remember, this is a hinge, not a squat. Think about bowing forward by pushing your hips straight back, keeping that spine nice and neutral. At the very top, you want to stand tall like a plank. Whatever you do, resist that urge to lean back. That's just asking for lower back trouble. All right, on to pillar number 2. Let's talk about one of the most terrifying late race nightmares for any marathoner. That sudden, seizing hamstring cramp that turns your beautiful stride into a painful shuffle. We're going to call this pillar the cramp vaccine. The heaviest single-leg Romanian deadlift, or RDL, is designed to build something called eccentric endurance. That's just a fancy way of saying it teaches your hamstrings to handle being stretched while under load, which happens thousands of times in a race. This exercise basically bulletproofs them against fatigue, even deep into those final kilometers. Now, notice the programming here is totally different from the kettlebell swings. Here, we're going for heavy weight and super low reps. We're talking just 5 to 6%. This is all about building pure, raw structural strength. It's tough, so you want to do this on a dedicated strength day and give yourself a solid 48 hours at least to recover before any big run. The cues for this movement are just fantastic. To get the motion right, I want you to imagine you're trying to shut a car door with your butt. That's that feeling of pushing your hips straight back. And to stay balanced, create what's called a tripod foot. That means actively gripping the floor with your big toe, your little toe, and your heel. Here is the absolute key to making this work and staying injury-free. You have to keep your hips level. Picture 2 headlights on your hip bones, and they have to stay pointed directly at the floor the entire time. Do not let that back hip fly open, and for the love of all that is holy, do not let your back round over. Okay, last but not least, let's stabilize the whole system. Pillar 3 is all about tackling that third major energy leak, the hip drop. We're going to turn your pelvis into a solid, unshakable platform. So meet your chassis stabilizer. The side plank abduction specifically goes after the glute medius. That's the key muscle on the side of your hip that's responsible for stopping your hip from dropping every time you land. A level pelvis means your power goes into moving you forward, not wobbling side to side. For this one, we're doing an isometric hold, which just means you're holding a static position. The goal is 3 sets of a really intense 30 to 45-second hold. And the great thing is, because it's so low impact, you can do this pretty often. 2 to 3 times a week is perfect, and it's a great little finisher to tack on right after a run. Pay close attention here, because 2 cues are absolutely critical. First, you need to be actively lifting your bottom hip high away from the floor. That's what engages your deep core. Second, when you lift that top leg, you have to lead with the heel. Seriously, if your toes are pointing up toward the ceiling, you're probably just using your hip flexor, not your glute, which kind of defeats the whole point of the exercise. With this move, form is absolutely everything. Quality is so much more important than duration. The very second your hips start to sag toward the floor, the set is over. Done. It is way better to hold a perfect 20-second plank than a sloppy 45-second one. Just imagine your body is stacked perfectly between 2 walls. Okay, so there you have it. We've covered our 3 pillars: the anti-rotation engine, the cramp vaccine, and the chassis stabilizer. So now, let's put it all together into one simple, actionable plan. So here it is, the complete blueprint. Your kettlebell swings, you'll plug those into your speed days. The heavy single-leg RDLs, they get their own dedicated strength day, kept far away from your hard runs. And that side plank abduction, you just sprinkle that in 2 or 3 times a week right after you finish your run. It looks simple, but believe me, this is an incredibly potent combination. And so, we'll leave you with this final thought. Getting truly ready for a marathon goes way beyond just your cardio. You've spent months and months training your engine. The real question is, have you built a chassis that's actually strong enough to handle all that power?